Good evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome everybody to the Macomb Township Planning Commission meeting for Tuesday, October 19th, 2021. If you'd all please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, Mr. Bentley, would you please call the roll?
Yes, sir. Mr. Hardy.
Here.
Mr. Tuckfield.
Here.
Mr. Provenzano.
Mr. Provenzano will be absent tonight, and in his absence will be excused.
Mr. Shudo.
Here.
Mr. Spatafora.
Here.
Mr. Oliver.
Here.
And Mr. Bentley, yes.
Okay. We have a quorum.
Mr. Chairman, at this time, I'd like to make a motion. We exclude member Provenzano from any and all roll call votes.
Motion to exclude Mr. Provenzano by Mr. Shudo,
Second.
seconded by Mr. Bentley. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right. All right, the next item is approval of previous meeting minutes. Are there any,
I'll make that motion.
you'll make that motion?
Sure, if there are no other comments or changes.
I'll second that.
Okay, motion by Mr. Bentley, seconded by Mr. Shudo. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Mr. Chairman, just for the record, I'll abstain on that vote as I was not at the last meeting.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Tuckfield. Approval of tonight's agenda. Anybody have any corrections, additions, deletions?
Mr.
You know
Chairman,
what, before I do that, I guess, the audience here, are you here for A or are you here for B?
See, show.
Which
A
is,
is the mass rezone.
yeah, the mass rezoning, or are you here for the planned unit development concept? So you're all here for probably the rezoning part? Okay, then let's approve tonight's agenda, and we're going to reverse them. So we'll have you guys go first, and then we'll have Smith Arena go next, okay? All right, with that, I'll make the motion to approve.
I'll second it.
Seconded by Mr. Shudo. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, motion passes. All right, so under new business, rezoning, mass rezoning residential one-family suburban R1S to residential one-family urban R1, located in parts of sections 5, 8, 17, 20, 28, 29, 33. Macomb Township Petitioner. Mr. Skirdo.
Okay, let me start there. Thank you. Again, David Skirdo, Planning Consultant, Macomb Township. I have a short PowerPoint. I know the commissioners have seen this already on 3 occasions, so for the benefit of the good folks here to hear out this next phase 4, I'm going to run through it again. We're rezoning all the R1S parcels in the township to R1 category in the first 4 phases. It'll be some other categories in the other 2, depending on the types of existing land uses. The reason for the rezoning is to show, if you look on the right in the legend, I just hit that button, the red line is removing that category entirely from the zoning ordinance. It's not because of any development's been in front of us, it's a township-initiated action. The reason we're removing that district, it is no bearing on a master plan, the master thoroughfare plan, or any other plans that the township has, and it really causes a lot of trouble in hiccups at the administrative level as we're trying to enforce something that has no bearing in any other parcel. That's the premise for doing all the rezonings. We are doing R1S throughout the township, so it's not just in one section or other. We broke it up into 6 phases. In order to make it more bite-sized, so we didn't have a couple hundred parcels at one time. Here's some of the bullet points. The category R1S does not correspond with any current land use category in the 2008 master plan. The category will not conform with any new land use categories when the new master plan is adopted in 2022. The R1S minimum requirement is 30,000 square foot per lot, which is about 1.45 units per acre. The lowest density, according to the master plan, is 2 units per acre. So their allowable density is less than the master plan allows. That's causing us a little bit of a issue with trying to make everything coordinate together. The change will allow for conformity between the zoning code and the master plan, both current and new master plan, as I had mentioned. The rezoning was taking places over 6 phases. We've already held 3 phases, which would be the ones in the colors of the darker red on the right, the orangish color also on the right, and the green that you took on last week, a little bit on Hayes, some up in the northeast corner. Tonight, we're in phase 4, which is R1S properties that are located, for the most part, along Romeo Plank Road. There's a map of the parcels that are affected. Many of the folks, by law, what happens is public notices went out to every property owner that owns the parcel shown in gray. In addition, we are required to send notices to everybody within 300 foot of each parcel on gray. So some folks may have got the notice, but their property isn't affected by this because they're already zoned R1. As a point of reference, I just want to point out that if you take a look at almost every subdivision or site condominium that you have in the township, they're all zoned R1, just as a point of reference. Here's what the rezoning requests are: considerations for doing this. It will allow 3 units per acre rather than 1.45 to 2 units per acre is currently allowed. Again, this is similar to any other subdivision or neighborhood in the township. It does reduce the street frontage required to build a home from 100 feet to 70 feet. It will allow homeowners to continue living as they currently live. It will not affect taxes. Any split zone parcel that has an R1S and another zone will be rezoned in its entirety to R1 to remove the split zone. And it will not prevent landowners from seeking other zones in the future if they so desire. Our recommendation is recommend approval of all the parcels within phase 4 to rezone from R1S to R1. That's it. I'd leave it back to you, Mr. Hardy.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Skirdo. Commissioners, comments?
Just to confirm, can you put back the plan you just had up? So we're not talking tonight, or we're only talking tonight about that in navy blue, correct?
Correct. Correct. That's the parcels you have listed on your notice. I can leave that map up there if you guys.
Yes. My layout is all dark.
Yeah, that's.
It's not in color, so.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, if I could?
Yep, go ahead.
Mr. Skirdo, there's, I believe, 6 parcels along 22 Mile, approximately quarter mile east of Romeo Plank, section 28. Those parcels are between a small subdivision to the west, and I believe it's Pinecrest to the east. I don't know if you're familiar with those parcels. They're long and thin.
Generally speaking, I don't know specifics.
We've had multiple ZBA variances along there, and there's been some concern about how those are going to be split in the back. I don't remember where it was last left. I think we haven't seen them for at least 2 or 3 years, but we've seen them multiple times, and I don't remember how they were left. Are you familiar with the variances or lack thereof on that parcel and how this might affect those?
No, it would, if they combine the parcels together, this would allow maybe a house or 2 greater to be developed if all 6 parcels were combined.
I apologize for not giving you more heads up. I didn't realize those parcels were on there literally until just now. I looked through mostly the portions to the north side of 22.
Okay.
I guess I know there's a lot going on with those. Is that something, if we looked to maybe Can we table that separately and look into it? I know we've gone around a lot. I just want to make sure we're not tripping over something because we looked at the length and the ability to build a street through there and whether or not they could put 2 lots in, and I just don't remember how we left it, to be honest.
Okay. And that's entirely up to the commission. If they want to pull those from any type of the meetings tonight and postpone it, you can always postpone it. We got 2 other phases and ask questions. We can always bring them back at another phase.
Okay, and then I would just say to Mr. Chairman, we've seen a lot regarding those parcels. My assumption is that it's probably fine, but I think that most of that work was predating the current planners. And if we could, I would feel more comfortable if we could have another 2 weeks on those, just to make sure that we're not those parcels. Yes, that would be so on section 28 along 22 Mile Road. I know we've had a lot of concern and energy over those at the ZBA level. It's probably fine, but I just want to make sure that we take a double look at it and we're all good.
So,
My question is, what would we be looking at?
So,
I mean, if the zoning isn't consistent with the master plan now, why wouldn't we try to conform with our new master plan?
because the variances as requested affected the density as my memory runs. And it might be possible that it would be more appropriate to zone it to something besides R1 even if we were going to rezone it. So possibly even a higher density because of the way it was done. Specifically, that the concern was how it interacts, if my memory serves correctly, with the street to the east, and whether or not they could split the end in 2 or put it in 1. And I honestly, I don't remember whether or not we granted a variance for it, and that's part of why I'd be looking for more time, just because I don't recall, and I know Mr. Skirdo was not there at the time, Mr. Aloya was not there at the time, so we don't really have a backup to make sure that we're in good shape.
I guess I'm trying to understand, so you're concerned that if there's a split, it wouldn't conform with R1? Because the parcel would conceivably be bigger than what R1 would be at its minimum length.
My concern is it would hinder the variance in some way. If I remember correctly, the variance was contingent on other things if we granted one. We looked at it 2 or 3 times, and I don't remember all of the instances of what was done. I remember at one time it was discussed that as long as the parcels stayed as they were currently zoned or currently used, that the variance would hold, but if not, that the variance would revert. And I just want to make sure that we're not treading on something that we didn't realize would be my biggest concern. If I had realized this a couple of days ago, I could have called in and I apologize.
So you're saying that there's an existing variance that has been granted, and your concern is that the conditions of that variance may be affected?
That's my concern, yes.
What addresses are these?
These would be the parcels in section 28, so that would be, see if I can find out, it would be fronted on 22, which I believe are the only ones in here that are fronted on 22. They would be permanent parcels 08281260001 through 009. And I don't believe, or I don't recall specifically if the variance was granted on 009 or on the adjacent parcel. I believe it was on 009 because the builder wanted to build 2 lots on an extension of the street to the east.
And was that split granted?
I don't remember. We looked at it multiple times. We denied it at least once. I believe we tabled it at least once, but I don't recall what the resolution is. And again, that's part of my concern about addressing it tonight, is I don't remember clearly what the result was.
I would have to say, though, I would assume that the variance would only be nullified if the petitioner moved to rezone it. Not by the township's own action. I don't see that as being operative.
Well, you certainly would know more than I. However, I would say most of the conditions I've heard aren't contingent on the petitioner making a change. They're more conditioned on the action.
Yeah, I just don't know enough.
And that's again, this is on me for not having realized before tonight. I know we looked at that a lot. I remember it being naughty. I remember there being contingencies on there, and I don't remember them enough to be able to say we were fine, or to even be able to tell you enough for you to be able to tell us they were fine is my concern.
Well, Well, it's up to the discretion of the planning commission whether they want to pull those units out or not for this reason. I don't know enough to believe or know, I mean, I understand what Mr. Tuckfield's saying, or I don't have enough information to know whether or not this rezoning would affect it whatsoever.
Mr. Lawyer, if we took those areas and made them R1,
Yes.
and a petitioner came forward, we could still grant a variance.
Yes, because
Correct.
the hardship would be based on the township's own action to rezone.
Okay,
Although if we,
That's one of the bases.
yeah.
Could be.
And if they were all R1, then the petitioner's gonna have to apply anyways.
Yeah, I'm just not sure.
An R1S, would he have to apply to get the changes that he's looking for?
Yeah, I'm not even sure how the changes would affect it if it's in the R1. I'm assuming he's trying to get smaller lots in that area.
And that was how long ago, Mr. Tuckfield?
it was approximately 3 or 4 years ago.
Okay.
How many lots was this? 2 lots?
Well, there's like 6 lots in a row. I believe it only affected the 2 lots to the east, but I don't remember, because they wanted to combine it with the owner of the long lots, and then they were gonna split out portions, and then they had to make sure they had frontage on the street, because once they split it, then they had to have frontage. And it was a really narrow band. It was a challenging area. That was why they were at the ZBA.
Are those lots built on at this point?
They are not, nor do I believe they have been staked or anything. They exist. It's in my neighborhood. I walk past it relatively often. They exist as they did when we had the variance request.
Was there a sunset clause on that variance? Do you recall?
I don't.
I know variances typically have a 365-day lifespan.
Yeah.
I thought they ran with the land.
Oh, do they have to act? Maybe, I'm gonna rescind that. I'm thinking about site plans, got a 365-day lifespan.
We may have put a sunset on it. I don't recall it. But again, that's what it gets back to. I remember it being, we looked at it a lot of times. It was relatively complicated, and I don't have a clear enough memory. My guess is that it's fine, and I'm not opposed to rezoning it. I just, for myself, I'm already making a bigger deal of this than I really want to. But if we could pull it aside just to make sure Mr. Loy and Mr. Skirdo could look at it, make sure that we're all good, that I would personally appreciate it.
There was a variance. Yes or no?
I believe there was. I believe there was a variance.
Maybe, Dave, just a quick question.
Yeah, sure.
We got 2 more of these?
Yes. You
When's
got
the
2 in
next-
November.
Okay, so it wouldn't be a big problem to subtract these?
No. If you feel more comfortable, we can actually subtract these out. We can bring them back do a research, bring them back to the next meeting if you prefer.
And it
We're
wouldn't,
gonna be able to catch them up anyways.
We'll catch up to, we got 2 more shots at catching them up.
and we wouldn't have to renotice them or anything of that nature?
No, because they have the option tonight to be here. If you're tabling that decision, as long as you don't deny that decision, as long as you table that decision to get more information, then no, you don't have to renotice.
Would that complicate things tonight to do that, Dave, just to subtract? the
No, I
parcels out?
believe Ben can help us out through it, but I think it's simply a motion, and you're gonna make a motion, and you just have to make sure whatever lots, got those lots nailed down, you got those lots are pulled out of that motion.
So them lots are just gonna, if we were to make that motion, them lots would remain the same until further.
Yeah, and then maybe Mr. Loya can help out, but possibly you can make a second motion that you postpone decision on those lots until next meeting or whatever meeting you want to bring them back to.
Yeah, you'd have to have a motion to approve with the exception of those lots.
Exception of those
Yeah.
lots.
And then vote to table the decision to rezone those lots until the next meeting.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
That makes
Right?
sense?
And then you have the other ones there that you'll be deciding on, so.
Yeah.
Works for me.
And does that give you enough time to go back?
Oh, yeah, we can find the records out. It won't take long. I'll get on them tomorrow to try to figure out where these are.
Yeah, yeah.
Right. All right, Mr. Bentley, I saw your hand up.
That's what I was gonna suggest, that we table it for, phase 5 or 6, depending on how long it would take to, investigate those.
Anybody else? Mr. Spatafor?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Skirdo, could you go back for a couple of maps ago that had the zoning legends for the future land use plan?
That one, or,
Yeah, either one.
that's the
good.
future
That-
land use plan there.
That's fine, because it pertains, I think, to the existing master plan,
Yes.
existing master land use plan and the future one. And for the benefit of our neighbors and friends in the audience, can you just briefly explain the zoning classification where it says residential 2 units per acre, which is also, I believe, known and classified as R1E?
Yes. That's R1E. That is typically up in the, you can see the 4 sections up in kind of the northeast, not the far northeast, but you see those 4 kind of lighter brown sections. I believe it's 2, 3, boy, my eyes aren't,
10 and 11.
10 and 11. Those are specifically set up for lots that are larger. There's no sewer in those areas. They run off septic, so they need a larger lot in order to be developed. And when we get to the R1 category, that's where we have the lots that have sewer pulled to them, water, things like that. I think the whole township has water. I don't think anybody's on well anymore. I'm going to lean on Mr. Oliver for,
No, we're not totally set up with water. The northern,
Yeah, okay.
eastern end stills.
but that, yeah, that's the whole reason for 2 units per acre, and that's why it's R1E, which the E stands for estate.
So it's possible at some point in the future when underground infrastructure such as water or sewer, if it's ever in the future extended up to those sections, then the issue of the zoning classification would it be looked at again?
It would be looked at for the R1 category. It could be any other category too, depending, could be a commercial category, industrial
Depending what
category,
is up
depending
there.
what presents itself.
But as it stands now, and for the current plan, master plan that's, in process, that R1E classification will remain in existence.
Yeah, for a large part of that. We do, the new master plan that's going out for distribution does show, we called a flex zone along right along the frontage of 26 Mile Road, kind of sort of east of Card Road, to, reflecting on different types of land uses that can mix together. But those are the properties fronting right on 26.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, anyone else? Anyone else? Well, then at this time, I would like to open it to our, what did you say, Mr. Spatafor? Friends and neighbors.
Yes.
And it is 6:53. I need a motion, please.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Oliver, supported by Mr. Shudo. All in favor of
Aye.
opening the meeting to the public?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay. Friends and family, or friends and
Neighbors.
friends and neighbors. Let me just read a little bit to you. As we open the public hearing for the rezoning, any person wishing to speak will be recognized and will be asked to give their name and address before speaking. We ask that all speakers limit their comments to 4 minutes. Once the public portion is closed, we will not recognize any further discussion or comments from the community. And what we do is, once you're all done talking, sharing your comments and concerns, then our planner will make some comments. We're not gonna do it after every single person. We'll just wait until the very end. So who would like to be the first to come up to the podium? Come on up.
Hi, my name is Joe Lucent, 17801 Lorena Court, and I live in Section 29, and I'm right behind or just west of the Iroquois Middle School and the Mohawk Elementary School. You can see the gray, it was very hard to pick it out, but I've got the little gray section. This little gray section here is the school property behind my house. All right, so now those schools are open and active. Now, would there be a possibility that somebody would rezone that part of that school property in single-family homes while that school is open? I mean, I don't understand why it's even being rezoned if there's a school there, right? Number one. And before I forget, number two, I think everybody wants to get a copy of this, maybe it's online on the website or something, but the PowerPoint, we all need to see that, because it went through pretty quick. I have no idea what was even on there. I can't even hardly see it from back there, or even from here. So that's the first question. I need a PowerPoint. Tell me where to get it. And then why would we be rezoning behind an existing school? So that'll be answered after I sit. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, thanks for your time.
Thank you, sir. All right. Next. Ma'am, come on up.
Good evening. My name is Anna Pashu. I live at 19476 Norway Pine Drive. That's section 28. This is the one that we talked a little bit. I live in this section for 21 years. The rezoning would really affect the neighbors. It would really cause a hardship, so please reconsider it. That's all, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Can we ask what the hardship would be?
Next. Anyone? That's it? Okay. Can they get the PowerPoint somewhere?
I'm gonna ask staff when I get there tomorrow. I'll be in the morning. I can ask staff if they can make the PowerPoint available.
Do you want to close the public hearing?
Oh, well, you know what? Anna, please come back up for a minute.
Yeah.
Please share the hardships that you were alluding to.
Yes, the hardships are as follows. When I moved in 21 years ago, the street had a sign, dead end. I live alone. I am a single person. All I do, I work and keep my house as beautiful as I can. And this was the reason why I bought the house, because it was a dead end. Now, if there is going to be a rezoning, a single, smaller homes will be coming behind my house. The value of my home, this is all I have, work and my house, which eventually will become my retirement. It will go down. And plus, additional activities that may occur.
Motor homes, you're talking about like mobile homes?
I'm talking unexpected events, okay? When I hear that it's gonna go from 1 acre to a lesser amount, that the distance is from 100 feet to 70, that doesn't present a good outcome for the future. I still have a lot of years left there, plus, my neighbors. I am representing the neighbors which live on this end of the street.
Okay.
But it's really, really traumatizing to me. And every time I get a notice from Macomb Township, I come to the meeting and I voice my opinion. And so far, I'm being helped that I still can live happily and safely there. But the rezoning would really do something. My internal, not only the intelligence that is being presented, but just the internal feeling is telling me this is not a good thing for your street, for your, for that particular end of the street. Because there is a land that can be split up by, smaller lots, and a lot of activities can occur. So the peace will be disturbed in addition to, let's face it, we all work and we want money when we retire, so it will go down. That's how I feel. So I would appreciate if that's looked at again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, it's 7:02, motion to close the public portion.
So moved.
By Mr. Shudo,
Support.
supported by Mr. Oliver. All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay. Mr. Skirdo, did you want to make
One
any
second, I'm
comments
getting
on-
all the numbers and everything down. Give me 1 second.
Yeah, okay.
Mr. Chairman, while Mr. Skirdo is looking at that, I did pull up the minutes from the ZBA. It was in the December 6th meeting, 2018, and we did grant a variance. It did pertain to lot width. I do not see any contingencies on it, but I still would like to look at it if it's possible, specifically because of the lot width.
What is the width that the variance is granted to?
It changes it to 60, and it has to do with the frontage on the street. I believe they were rotating the lots east and west instead of north and south, so that they could butt up against the end of the stub street that the homeowner was talking about.
If the variance was granted to allow a 60-foot width, that would not change with this rezoning.
Correct, but it's outlot D, which is actually not the last parcel that abuts the street. It's the second one. And again, I don't have all the notes here, but it was one of those meetings that went a long time, and there was a lot that went on. And as long as the board is willing to humor me, we have 2 weeks. We can postpone it without causing a problem. I just feel comfortable if you guys took a second look at it, made sure we were all square.
Anyone else with a comment? Anyone else? All right, do we have a motion?
Dave's gonna make a few.
He's gonna.
You want me to answer a
Answer
couple
the
of the
question.
questions?
Oh, yeah, I did.
Okay, we had
got
two
all of us.
questions.
I'm
The
sorry.
first one had to deal with the school property.
Yeah.
And many of the schools in Macomb Township are, not all of them, but many of them are already zoned R1, and it's common in all the townships and cities I work in. It's pretty common to have the surrounding neighborhood be zoned the same as the school. The school board would have to sell the property if it was ever going to be developed. And so just because of the zoning changes, it doesn't mean there's development coming. Okay? In terms of the second one, causing a hardship, I know we had the thing about the dead-end streets. Well, dead-end streets, we call them, the engineering department calls them stub streets. You guys know you do a lot of site condominiums and subdivisions, and every time you have that, you have people put in stub streets so the next development can occur. Because if without the stub streets interconnectivity, everybody's forced out on one road on the major roads, and you don't have, it really adds to the traffic congestion on surrounding major roads. So I don't know how to answer questions about the dead end, the property values. Unless someone can show me any type of data, I'd be happy to look at any type of data that shows me property values go down because of the rezoning. I don't think they will.
Okay.
Because most of the townships zoned R1 already, and no one's ever come and said that to us before. And the last thing had to deal with just the density, and I'm going to suspect the subdivision that the young lady was talking about is zoned the same as where this zoning is going. I don't know definitely, but I'm going to suspect it is by looking at the section numbers, things.
Okay.
If that helps, that's my answer to the question.
That does. That helps a lot. Thank you, Mr. Skirdo.
I got a question. Ms. Skirtle, can you make it, again, clear that taxes are not gonna be affected by?
Taxes are not affected by rezoning. Taxes are only affected by the physical structures you have built on your property.
Okay. And so if someone has a little out barn, if we've used the word chicken coop
Yeah.
or something like that, that'll remain the same.
That remains the same. It's not going to affect, people can actually maintain those. They can keep the chickens and things like that. They can even sell the house with the chickens on there. This is not going to affect anything. Whatever's happening right now is termed legal non-conforming. It doesn't conform because of some issue. It might be too many outbuildings or something like that. But yet they are legally allowed to conform, legally allowed to sell the property or whatever because they pre-exist the zoning changes. Now, in terms of outbuildings, as you talk about chicken coops or barns, whatever you want to call, they are not affected by the zoning. They are affected by the amount of acreage a person owns. So a person in R1 could have more acreage than a person in an R1S and still be allowed to have greater amount of outbuildings, larger outbuildings because of the acreage size.
Okay. Thank you.
Does that help?
Yep.
Thank you, Mr. Oliver. Okay. I don't think this is working. Anyone else have a question or concern, commissioners? Anyone?
I guess in response to Anna's concerns, lower values and such, and related to the variance given for 60-foot wide, is that correct? Is it since the minimum width of an R1 has to be 75 feet,
70 feet.
70
Correct.
feet,
Yes.
and for 60-foot lots, they wouldn't be able to build, is that correct?
If a zoning category pre-exists, it was originally platted or got a variance for a lesser lot that could be built on at that lesser lot sizes. If someone touches that property or makes a different configuration, then the minimum lot width has to be met or another variance has to be sought.
But if there's already a variance, the variance will prevail.
Yeah, correct.
And if the lots, because it appears that there's, like you said, 6 different lots, and I'm not sure whether her house is on a portion of one of those lots, I'm not sure, but those lots, if combined, or if they were made single, or kept single, that might have an effect as well on how many houses could be placed on that particular parcel. Is that correct?
Correct. We are going to look at any parcel is going to be constrained by the 70-foot lot width. They're going to be constrained about if there's sewer and water by the 8,400 square foot minimum lot area. They are going to be constrained by 3-to-1 ratio in terms of lot frontage to lot width. And what is one other constraint? So it's still 3 units per acre that the master plan and the zoning requires.
Mr. Chairman and Mr. Bentley, when we had a lot of discussion on this, and I remember the petitioner or the resident coming in, the concern was that there's 2 stub streets, and the concern is that the stub streets might be connected and have more traffic. The variance as presented essentially dead ends one of the sub streets, and therefore keeping it a stub street. The houses are turned sideways, sort of like a quasi court, if you will, which was part of why they had to require the variance. And the reason that the builder was doing that was of those long lots, several of them did not want to sell so that they could not combine the back end of the parcels and allow the stub to go through. So I would think, from what I would understand, that to the residents' concern, unless the issues on the ground are different than they were when the developer felt the need to ask for a variance, that it probably wouldn't change the outcome for her house. And at the time, my memory was that for the possibilities that were out there, the variance granted was an acceptable compromise that kept the street quiet and essentially maintained its dead-end nature. And I think the residents at the time were generally happy with it. There was more houses there, but it stayed non-connecting. So.
Okay.
Again, unless the variance specifically addresses rezoning, this rezoning will not affect the variance. So I just want to make that clear to the board.
If you would prefer we didn't separate it, I would bow to that. I was able to read the variance and I don't see anything there. We looked at it a lot of times and I remember there being a lot of moving pieces. It may be overkill. I would prefer to postpone it.
I leave it up to the planning commission's discretion.
Okay. All right. I don't think anybody's against that. We can catch it up in 5 or 6. Phase 5, phase 6. Okay, do we have a motion? Anybody have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, seeing as I'm going to have to make the difficulty here, I'd like to make a motion to recommend the rezoning of the subject parcels given us from R1S to R1, with the exception of parcels 0828126001, 002, 003, 004, 005, and 009, and those 6 specifically held out to give the planning staff and legal staff the chance to check to make sure that there are no other conflicts. The balance of the parcels are recommended from R1S to R1 to bring those subject parcels in accordance with the existing master plan and to correct any inconsistencies we have there.
Okay, do we have a second?
I'll second that.
All right, seconded by Mr. Spatafora. All right, Mr. Bentley, please call the roll.
Mr. Tuckfield,
Yes.
Mr. Spatafora,
Yes.
Mr. Shudo,
Yes.
Mr. Bentley, yes. Mr. Hardy,
Yes.
Mr. Oliver.
Yes.
Okay. It's passed unanimously we have a second motion now.
Yeah, we have to make a motion. I'd like to make a motion to postpone the decision on permanent parcels 0828126, 001, 002, 003, 004, 005, and 009 until our next regularly scheduled meeting to give staff the chance to look at those for any potential conflicts.
Okay, I'll support that. Mr. Bentley, please call the roll.
Yes. Mr. Tuckfield,
Yes.
Mr. Hardy,
Yes.
Mr. Oliver,
Yes.
Mr. Bentley, yes. Mr. Shudo,
Yes.
and Mr. Spatafora.
Yes.
Okay, motion passes unanimously. All right. So we are good with this item. On to the next one.
You wanna give them a second if they wanna,
Pardon me?
wanna give them a second if they wanna leave, or?
Oh, yeah, if you guys are interested in staying for the other part, you're welcome to. Everybody's welcome to stay, or we'll just pause a moment, and if you would like to just kind of, head home or whatever, that's up to you. It's nice having company, so it's okay if you stay. Okay, next item is the Planned Unit Development Concept Review. Smith Arena, permanent parcel 08253760004, located on the northwest corner of 21 Mile Road and Fairchild, Section 25, Mark Smith, petitioner. Mr. Skirdo.
Sure, thank you, Mr. Hardy. We have a short presentation on Mr. Smith's proposal. It will be on the screen behind you. The first step in our proposal is Smith Arenas is located, as you can see, it'll be 21 Mile Road along the bottom and Fairchild Road along the right side. Right now, they're asking for a planned unit development to do an arena, which includes some outdoor soccer field, an outdoor sand volleyball court, indoor courts such as basketball and such training facilities. That would be in the center of the site, and you'll see drawings coming up in Mr. Smith's presentation. They also are looking at doing retail in three or four buildings right along the intersection of 21 Mile and Fairchild. And the far northern end of the property, they are showing that as remaining natural right now. Mr. Smith's going to get into some other issues with that phase of the development. In terms of the process, a plan unit development requires 3 steps. The first step is a concept plan review, which is on today's discussion. This is for the Planning Commission to look at just the general concept to see if you're comfortable with it and whether it should proceed down the road to step 2, which is a general design review. You can offer comments and suggestions related to the proposed development, and a public hearing is not required, and township approval, board approval is not required at this stage. Step 2, which follows approval of step 1, is a general design review. We will look at the details of the site. We'll get into the special land use standards in the PUD general design criteria, which includes street layouts, includes landscaping, access points, Macomb County Department of Roads and Drain Commission comments and things like that, when you see the details of the site coming in play. Finally, step 3 is when the actual structures are presented in front of you. Then we get into the real detailed elements of the site plan at that point. In terms of the development, you can see it's a little hard. If you look down in the lower right corner, that's Fairchild Road, and the lower left area that bleeds out for that retail, that's 21 Mile Road. You can see that the arena is placed behind. They have a central park with a detention basin separating the retail from the arena. The arena is placed back on the site a little bit, and then to the north of that bluish square is where the natural area will be. It was originally proposed as residential. It's changed concepts a couple times from single family to multiple family, and now it's at the natural stage. The applicant will get into that in a little bit. I'm just going to keep moving. One thing I will point out that is multiple parcels are zone R1, which is residential, one family urban. Single family residence exists, as you can see in the aerial, to the north, west, east, and south. There are stub streets connected to the property for the subdivision. To the west, and I believe it's Gulf View Street on the far north, which is the top. Hickory Lane, I think, or may have another Hickory name, to the center. And there's a small stub street for the small sub to the south end of the parcel, which is at the bottom. Here's a large presence of potential wetland areas shown in green hatching. It's hard to see in that screen, but it's in the central part of the site, the north part of the site, and that comes from the Macomb County system, so it's real general. The elevations really abruptly change. They start out about 620 near the streets, and they drop down to 600 feet near that west property line near the subdivision. And actually, from the front of the building to that west property line, it drops down from 615 to 600, so it's a 15-foot drop in grade. So the building pad itself is suspended. There have to be some land balancing and things. That building is going to be pushed over the top of a abrupt drop-off. One of the issues we'll talk about is the homes will be sitting the grade at the home level would be 15 feet less than the first floor grade of the building. Major street access will be from 21 Mile and Fairchild Road. Development review comments. Here's some comments we came in. These pertain. We had a lot of comments come in, but a lot of them pertain to the next phase, which is the development review. This is for the conceptual review. Some of our questions we have from planning. We do see an inconsistency in the drawings. One drawing shows 3 retail buildings, 2 on 21, 1 on Fairchild. Another drawing shows 2 on Fairchild as opposed to 1. Again, we spoke about the residential component at the north end, where you can see that blue spot looks like a pond area. Earlier discussions have discussed in having first of all, a single-family neighborhood and then a multiple-family development in that area. Now this shown as a natural feature area. It's one of the questions we need clarification on tonight. We do ask if the screening along the west property line will adequately protect the abutting residential neighborhood, considering there's that 15-foot drop in grade. The next item, assessing, will require a complete legal description. We do have a plan in the area showing where the lots are, but we are going to need a legal description of the specific plan unit development area. Engineering would like to have all property boundaries delineated, all roads labeled, access points shown, clear visions shown, and road improvements, at least generally shown on this plan for commission review. The look at Golf Run Lane, which is the actual name of that street, to the very top, you can see the subdivision to the left, which is the west. That street is dedicated as a connector plan, a connector street on the Township Master Thoroughfare Plan. So based on the requirements, either that street has to continue through to Fairchild, or else we have to remove that street from the Master Thoroughfare Plan if it's not to continue. And then we had questions of whether the Macomb County Department of Roads and Drain Commissions have been contacted yet for comments. Fire did have a comment on an access lane that surrounds the building. The newest plans, which were received actually this afternoon, show an aerial apparatus lane, but that has not been reviewed by the fire department because we received those this afternoon. And that's it for our presentation. I'm going to do my best to get out of here and set up the petitioner brought his own presentation, so I'm going to do my best to get theirs up on the screen.
Is the petitioner in the audience? with your army?
I think I got it. I think I got it.
You got that?
Yeah, I got it.
Okay.
No, I got it.
Come on up and state your name and address for us, please.
Good evening. Mark Smith at,
Pull the mic towards you a little bit.
how's
There
that? Is
you
that better?
Perfect.
Great. Mark Smith at 34446 Giannetti Drive in Sterling Heights, 48312.
Okay. All right.
Great. Well, thanks,
Mr.
guys.
Smith, I'm gonna ask for you, Q, to move the slides up for you.
Oh, okay, good. We'll have a
Go to the next
secret,
one? Okay.
secret sign. Great, yeah. So we'll go through. I appreciate everybody taking the time to go through this. I know these are never easy to walk through, but we try to put together a deck here that really shows what the overall vision is, how we're looking to enhance the community, and really do so with the community involved, with the township involved, road commissions, and so on. So we want to do this in harmony with the township, the way it looks, and really enhance what is being offered right now. So if you want to go to the next slide, we can start getting into a few things.
There we go.
All right.
Too quick with the trigger.
So we've got the first thing that we look at is really looking at different parcels. And so this, the shape of this 85.17 acres is really unique. So we've got 7 different parcels that are in there. As you'll see, the lower 40 acres or so is what we'll look at for retail, right? So these buildings down below are meant to kind of show what the thought is, right? Being 2 on the bottom, or do we connect them? And 2 along Fairchild. A park for the community or something along those lines there. Again, that'll be working with the Parks and Recs Department of the Township to determine what's best there. And then the arena to the west. In the north, you're right, Mr. Skirtle, like you said, our goal is to have residential there. I think that's an enhancement to the community. We've got a partner who wants to do their own zoning there, so we're going to leave it to them to do that. So we left it as just the way it is right now. So as we look at what we're doing, if we want to go to the next slide, our goal was really to make sure that we're doing everything as needed, and really looking forward to doing so and enhancing the community the best we can. And in doing so, we wanted to look at the wetlands. So we paid for a wetland study to be done very thoroughly, worked with Eagle to determine where we can place this, not only in this land, but really in Macomb overall. Doing a 17-site review, we landed on this site, which we really love, and really tried to mitigate what we're doing to impact the acreage of wetland. So you'll see there in kind of that peach color, we've got just about 1 acre that will impact. We'll be purchasing credits through the wetland group. We'll do that, and it's a 2-for-1, so we'll be buying 2 acres instead of 1. So if you want to go to the next one. As we look through, we've got a number of elements that we're looking to do here. So I'll call out a few as we do it. First of all, when we look, we knew in our mind, we've got all of us here kind of that have been through it with the kids and all this. And when we do training, when we do games, we knew that our area, right in our hearts, we knew that our area, man, we're driving out to Oakland County, we're driving out to Brighton and Wixom, and we'd like to live, work, and play in Macomb. So we had an inkling that this was the right idea, so we went ahead and hired the #1 sports advisory group in the nation to help us to do an impact study and to find out, is this really accurate? After paying a load of money, we found out that indeed it is. We already knew it. So not just in our area, but when you look in southeastern Michigan, Macomb County is in the most dire need of a facility like this, which is great for me because this is my background, my backyard. This is where we grew up. Back in the day, I was a Chippewa grad, would have been Dakota grad, now that that's in. But love the area, and we're glad to see that our thoughts were right. When we look at making this a safe environment, we've got a couple of pieces that I'll point out here. For us, we want to be really good neighbors, right? Right now, we've got these neighbors who enjoy their private lots. So when we look at the surrounding area, we didn't want to take this building right to somebody's backyard. Even saying that, we decided what we want to do is go 25 feet plus of the woods they have now to keep that privacy. And then what we want to do is add another 163 mature trees to really give more screening. What that does is helps us with a couple of things. First, keeps those private lots private, which is great. Secondly, it abates any noise and sound. So along with that, we'll see a couple of slides in here where we'll talk a little bit more about what that screening looks like, how we abate sound and abate light. One thing that came up through Sergeant Gearman from the fire department was he wanted a access road behind. So you'll see kind of going around where Mr. Skirdo is showing is that fire lane that comes through. So that allows for no parking or no public use, but should the fire department need it or an ambulance, we've got it set there. And I think for that, I think that kind of covers that. We've got our second story that we show. Really, when we look, a lot of what we want to do is when you look at this, you can see there's a big field on the top, right, the northern part. That's an indoor field. Around here, we don't have a lot of facilities that we can go to for football, for soccer, lacrosse, that are indoor. So it forces people to go out to Oakland County, go out to Washtenaw, right, neighboring communities. We'd like them to keep their money and efforts here, so always good. So we've got that. We've got, like Mr. Skirdo said, training facility, basketball, volleyball, right? The things that we would think. Also, a big part that we want to do is for the seniors in the community. That is a really big part of why we're here. So you'll see in our program a lot of senior activities. We open up at 7 a.m. From 7 to 3 will be mainly senior focused or mommy and me programs to take care of, of those important members of our community. Once we hit 3 o'clock to about 8 o'clock will be children in school, and after 8 o'clock will be adults. So we try to do that there. And not to give you an ad or a commercial here, but just to let you know our thinking there. So if we go to the next slide, when we look at the height of the building, we didn't want a hulking building, that looks like Ford Field or something that goes up 80 feet high. We try to design this where we can get natural light in, make it where we can play basketball safely, football safely, soccer safely, without really impeding over the trees. So you'll see our building sits there just about 50 feet. Typical homes just shy of 30 feet. And so what we wanted to do is keep that below the tree line. You'll see on the property, there's not a lot of mature trees. We've got little groupings of trees and a lot of shrub. So our goal is to build around the trees that are already there and then to add more trees. So when you see any trees that are there right now, we're going to leave those and then we're going to add to it to create more screening. What that does for us is it allows our neighbors, like we said, to keep it private, their backyards. It also abates any noise. We'll have outdoor games during the day. I'm not sure that's going to impact anybody. You'll probably hear Dakota, in their football games much easier than any games at ours. We don't have speaker systems out there. But even when it comes to lighting, we'll show you that in a couple of slides. But we even made those direct. Instead of illuminating the sky, they're very direct, more security lighting. So if we go to the next slide, now we can see down on the bottom, we'll see on the bottom left there, we'll see kind of some orange homes. I know they look much better than that, but when we look at that, that's kind of showing the height. So you've got homes that are 28, 30 feet high. We've got our mature trees behind them, which I'm sure they really enjoy. As you look back, you can see about 12, 15 feet into those trees, and then it gets really dense. We're keeping another, right? We go 25 feet deep, and then even more trees behind it. So that will, I think, really make the neighbors happy. I think when we look at lighting, we look at sound, I think kind of our thoughtfulness on that really helps the neighbors to feel good with this and not feel like we've got another Dakota High School in the backyard. So if we go to the next slide, what we've done too is we really tried to be thoughtful in terms of what we're doing with vegetation, with trees, with a lot of the foliage around, and we wanted to keep it very natural. So you'll see our wetland areas, we've avoided building on those except for almost an acre. So we've avoided as much as we can. There's 9.18 total acres, including that pond of wetlands. So in working with doing our wetland study and working with Eagle, we're able to find a really nice spot for that. And then again, we wanted to show that we're planting trees along entrances, really keeping a very natural look. Down in the bottom right here, we've got some other elements just to kind of show that it really is an enhancement to the community, but kind of fits in, right? We didn't want to do anything where it doesn't look Macomb, and wanted to keep it really, really enhancing the community and not, something that detracts from it. So the next slide, this is a great one. Believe me, I will not spend a lot of time on this. This is how we are planting each tree and what we're going through in depth. So very important, but not something we need to go through tonight. This is when we talk about lighting. So we're typically used to, when we talk about a softball field or we talk about football fields, we're used to this lighting that if you are within 3 miles, you see the lights. If you're an airplane going overhead, you are blinded by these lights. Ours are a bit different. We're going with digital directional lighting. So while they provide safety, you can see the dark purple shades there are the intensity of the light. The green is the dissipation of the light, and then outside of that light green, you see nothing. So we did that for the community. We didn't want to have the softball lights that illuminate the sky. We didn't want to have the football lights that people are used to. We wanted to go with these that are secure. Even at night, if there's any motion, wherever there is motion, if somebody's walking by, the lights will come on at a 20%. If motion continues, it'll go up to 50% at night, and then be removed a few minutes after that as the motion goes by. So enough for safety, not enough to impede anybody's windows. So this is overall, and Mr. Scotto, you did a great job describing this. Is always kind of weird to look at. If we're looking northwest, standing at 21 and Fairchild, and we kind of elevate ourselves up to about 100 feet here, this is us looking down at the retail to the bottom right. That would be Fairchild, and the bottom left, which would be 21 Mile Road. We're looking to have a park that enhances the Macomb Township's Parks and Rec right now. We've got a nice retention pond. So we thought that would be a great place for walks, for if we have communities doing 5K runs, they could stay safe here and not go on the roads. And we have it going all around the property, around the back, which is really nice. So we wanted to keep that for the community that's free of use. Everything that you see outdoor, right? If we're not using the fields, not using the sand volleyball, feel free to use that. That's for community use. And then our indoor pieces, I'm really going to love once we start getting into the schematics, because you can see the way we've done it is not only great for coaches and players and visitors. What's great about it, it's great for parents who have multiple kids at a facility. So the sight lines are great. So you can see from the soccer field into the basketball courts into the family entertainment center. So a lot of fun. And then we've got our parking. One piece that came up was ADA. So you'll see a lot of, once we start getting into that, you'll see a lot more than we need, but a lot of handicap parking, because we know grandparents will be there. So we want to make a lot of close spots for that. We'll have a lot of veteran parking that'll be there as well. And then we'll see, a plethora of parking back there, and maybe employee parking way back in the northeast there. So that's what we've got there. So I think that's it. So this is our entrance. This is kind of what you'll see. You'll see a lot of sidewalks we talked about in the comments. Great comment, 8-foot sidewalks. So it's really nice for cycling or for walking, strollers. We'll have 8-foot sidewalks that go along our property from 21 of Fairchild, from Fairchild west along 21, and then we'll have it on our site so we can have the walking path both just off the property and on the property. And I think that's it. Yep, that's your last slide.
Okay. Nicely done. Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioners, questions, comments?
I just have a couple. Your soccer fields, are they full size?
Our soccer fields are full size, yep.
And did you plan on putting a dome on them in the winter? You're outside?
No, we've been talking for about the past year and a half with Macomb Township, and it sounded like domes at the time were not allowed. If they are allowed, we're up for it if you're up for it.
Well, that was my question.
Okay.
Because we had Elite came to us a couple years back, and that's what they wanted to do, just put domes up, and that wasn't something that we really cared for personally. And it looks like, one more question, it looks like your commercial is going to be set up for 4 drive-throughs. Because you have the space in between each one, and just,
Yeah.
the thoughts are, instead of connecting them, you can have drive-throughs with the separate buildings like that. Those are just comments that I'm observing, and
That's good.
that I just want to bring up to the commission.
Good comment.
That's it, Mr. Chairman, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Spatafora.
Mr. Shudo.
Mr. Shudo, thank you.
Mr. Spatafora is pondering over there what he's gonna.
Anyone else with a
I got a
question?
question to the
Yes.
petitioner. So generally, if this project gets started, I know this is just preliminary right here. Will your commercial go first? We'll actually go over, and I asked this question many times on these PUDs, because what happens, what I see happening, we all experience this, is that this looks great, everything's good, but now it'll lead me to the next question about funding, but I'll get back to that. Commercial sells fast, okay? We usually, in a few cases, we've ended up with stuff that we really expected more, and then one part of it goes, and then the rest never gets done. So what is your intentions on this?
So with us, our facility is the anchor, right? So as we talk to our development partners, our goal is to do all groundworks at the same time, right? And get that facility up as soon as we can. So we've got our director of football operations here. We've got some folks that are waiting for this to be built. We've got our volleyball teams that are waiting for this. So our goal is to get that up very quickly. If we happen to be beaten by a few weeks or so by retail, because that goes up quicker, fine. But yeah, the goal is not to get up retail and then delay.
That leads me to my next question. Generally, something this big, I've seen it in the past, it gets community funded. How's your funding here? And do you have funding?
We have funding. Our funding is all private. So we're not.
So there'll be
requesting any
no
funding from the
public money into this.
No.
And you got your funding?
We have our funding.
Good. Okay. That's it for now.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Oliver. Mr. Spatafora?
I'll just allude to Mr. Shudo's comment about Elite a few years ago in the domes. I'm part of that team with Elite now, but there's no domes going in there. First of all, Mr. Smith, good evening. I really like at this initial stage in the introduction of this concept. I do like the concept. Just a couple of general questions. What type of retail do you envision in the commercial at this particular time?
I think ours, when we contemplate what we'd like there, we always think of the things like Starbucks would be nice and, probably have a Verizon. I think the only things that we'd like to do is make it where it's beneficial for the community. We don't want to have vape stores. We don't want to have CBD stores. We want to have things that children and families are very proud to go through. And I think things that will benefit from the facility being there. So typically we'll see around facilities, you'll see, restaurants, right? Fast food, right? It's typically it.
Depending what that market will hold. Can you just elaborate a little bit more briefly in one of your elevation drawings? There was like a second floor level, and going through the plans, there was a lot of open space. Is that just basically a theoretical second floor is just open air because of the open nature of your design?
That's a lot of it, yeah. So really for us, when the open air design kind of on the second floor, we've got a couple of items that you'll see there, but mainly we're looking down on the basketball or volleyball courts. You're looking down on the field. So you don't have a ton going on. What you will see with our medical partner on the south side is, more for there's the training area and physical therapy rehab.
Will our residents, friends and neighbors, as I described a little bit earlier, have a fair, opportune access to, let's say, let's take the football or the soccer field. Looks like you have the hash marks and things kind of concept out there, whereas a lot of our football fields throughout the township, you have multiple teams going on, by and large, Little League football and soccer, things like that. Is that a possibility where you can have multiple clubs there at the same time, or are you looking maybe to schedule perhaps private clubs, as I can see even without stands? I don't know about that, but like a semi-pro football team or something like that, if you're going 100 yards on those lines.
Yeah, when we looked at this, it's really intentional. It's not just kind of by the way, we might be able to do it. A gentleman here, Mike, who might talk today, maybe not. Mike and I, when our kids were younger, they were about 6, 7 at the time, we coached them, right? And little AYSO locally, which was great. But the hard part was finding any fields that are open. So when we designed this, that was our thought. is we wanted to make it where it's accessible. So that's why I mentioned a little earlier that if we don't already have a high school using it or a team using it, right, at 5 at night or something, and a team wants to come in and use it at 3, or the local high schools and talking to the athletic teams, if they want to come and use it, they're welcome to. It's public use.
Okay. I guess my concern is if you have too many area high schools, then you have them occupying a lot of the time, particularly if there's like football or soccer practice after school and things like that. And then all of a sudden, what you perhaps conceptually intend for the residents at large, well, now you've got private or public groups that are going to be using it. So I would take there's some type of a fair chance or a fair opportunity, at least for residents to do it, or to, if there's like a sign up or whatever type of registration you're gonna ultimately employ for the site.
You're absolutely right, yep. So we love technology, but that's where it helps us out, right? So we can see public times, right, and they can sign up, and we make it official. That's a little better than just randomly people showing up, right?
And you say you have a partner that's interested at some point in the future to do residential development in and around that that retention pond that's there now, or?
Yeah, so there's a pond just north. It'd be kind of almost in the center, on the top there, right in that area, in the upper 40 acres. We've got some folks that might be interested, and we'll see. I mean, even to this point, we're not sure if they want to do single family or multifamily. So they know the area. The good thing is, in looking at it, they've got developments in Macomb, so they know the process. They know what fits and what doesn't. So.
And thank you. And my last question, it's a little concern. It's going to be delineated and hashed out more in the second and the third phases, but just conceptually with your elevations of your arenas and the football field and the beach volleyball courts back there, it's going to be elevated about 15 or 20 feet higher than the neighborhoods, the residents to the east, I believe is what we read, what was presented, and what you also touched on. Is that something that you are mindful that when we get beyond at least the concept stage, as far as, engineering type goes for perhaps retaining walls, swales, and other such issues that come up when you've got unequal elevations and land topography like that?
That's exactly it. When we talk about groundworks, that's our goal, is to lower it as much as possible, right, without hitting our water tables. But, we'd like to make it where, if we can even that out or bring that down more, that's our goal to do that. So whether it's with retail, whether it's with our facility, right, lower.
Realizing that there's going to be a lot of engineering that will have to be done because you have issues, with infrastructure, obviously, water, flooding, questions that are going to come up at some point.
And have come up.
So, well, thank you. Conceptually, I like what I see in this preliminary stage, and I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Bentley?
A few questions. You talked a little bit about timing. What are your hours that you plan this facility to be occupied for, beginning to end? You said 7 o'clock in the morning, but I didn't hear when this is over, when this is closed out.
Typically, we'd have facilities like this open from 7 or 8 in the morning. We like 7 in the morning for our senior programming and our Mommy Me programs. We typically close at 9 or 10 at night during the week. During the weekend, we might carry it over till 11. But when we look at that, that's indoor, right? That outdoor would be based on whenever we had sunset. So if it's now, it might be more like 6:30.
So you have no outdoor lighting for your outdoor courts?
We don't have it planned right now, no.
But your intent would be to have lighting so you can occupy those or use those later?
If the community wants it, we can do it. It's a major cost. But yeah, I think we'd have to see what the community demands and what the township would allow.
All right. And then you talked about a development, residential, on the north end of this property. There was also the discussion from the engineering department that there's a requirement for that stubbed road to continue through to Fairchild, does your developer for that residential or the designer for that residential, are they keeping that in mind as they lay that out?
Yeah, we've made them aware of that. You know, so when they come back, you know, we'll see how they address that road coming through.
Now, from what I understand in the presentation that Dave did, that area to the north is pretty much all wetland, is it not?
On the Macomb County GIS map, yeah, it generally shows as wetlands. It
So-
will have to be staked.
So for it to be developed into residential, there would have to be a lot more mitigation. You had indicated that the 1 acre total of your little slivers really had to be mitigated to 2 acres someplace. Where is that 2 acres of wetland going?
Well, that's actually for the wetland bank, and they would purchase it, and it'd be somewhere in the state, but they're very unclear of where that would be.
Okay.
Yeah, and just to clarify too, so we had thought that too, based on the GIS, this land looked to be about 38 acres of wetland. And so we paid for a wetland study to be done. Had them come out after a few months. They completed that study and found out that there is total 9.18 acres spread out throughout this area. So our area that we're looking at contains about 5 acres that we're able to go around. The north is 3 acres around that pond, and then you've got about another 1.25 acre and a tenth spread out throughout there. So with that design, we've shared that with the residential partners to let them know as well. This is what they're looking at. So they're going to build around that and avoid wetland.
That sounds
Yeah.
more doable than what I was seeing. Another concern I had, and it relates to the hours open, but also the lighting. You have clear story on on several of the facilities. Second floor, you have clear story underneath the roofs to emit daylight, I would assume, help with your lighting during the day. In the evenings, that would be on, and it would glow. And unless the lighting itself was cut off lighting within the buildings to preclude any glowing clear story for the surrounding areas. We already talked about the fact that this is very high to the adjacent residences. That's all they need is a glow coming through the trees, right? So that would be a concern of mine, and maybe that could be mitigated as you further develop, at least towards the residential areas, and possibly with the internal lighting, shades, whatever, motorized shades or whatever. So those would be my concern. You did talk a little bit in response that you're trying to lower the floor plate. It looks like if it's 15 feet, and I couldn't tell with the elevations that were identified, it was hard to tell why you had to be so high, and why it couldn't be lower, and a little bit different landscaping and sculpting to bring that facility down. Is your intent to keep the first floor level throughout the complex? Or are you ramping, are you reducing some of the higher buildings to a lower elevation initially? Interior, I know you've got to accommodate ADA, but in an effort to keep that elevation down, how will you accomplish that,
It's a great question, Mr. Bentley. So when we go through, that was really, contemplated by our engineers and architects early on. So when you look at the area, the footings that we have, we're at about 606 to 612. And so what we want to do is match that to the surrounding homes. So when we look at groundworks and we look at, abating that water and the runoff, that's really where it comes in. So when we talk about groundworks, that's what it is trying to lessen that. Right now, just the natural ground right there is between 606 and 612. So we'd like to reduce those
At your footprint?
at our footprint, yeah.
Okay. And what is it at the residential property line?
Residential goes from 606 to 610.
Okay, so you're saying it's level?
It's-
At the
it's-
property line, it's level with your footprint?
It's close. Ours, the natural ground goes up about 6 feet, so we want to match the ground.
Okay. My suggestion would be to do all you can to reduce that height.
Absolutely, yeah.
Any way you can. I know you have the trees there, but I'm not sure how many of those trees are evergreen, how many are deciduous, but from when I look at it, I mean, it's hard to even enter into that area. It's quite dense, at least on the perimeter, so. I understand your desire to screen that lighting. I'm not sure how it will screen the sound, especially with late night games. Also, I wondered, are you having any spectators at your outdoor courts?
We will have spectators on the field, the outdoor field. We'll have a lot of spectators that'll be near the building. So you can see it's horseshoe shaped. So we try to do that to reduce the sound.
Yeah.
And then we'll have behind us, we'll have a lot more of that, of the tree planting behind the sand volleyball to give us more screening to mitigate sound.
Right. And the horseshoe is great, but it really is screening the non-residential areas, except for to the south, which aren't shown. So that's helpful to the south, but doesn't help it to the west. So, you know, I'm not sure if you're still playing with the footprint, if that can be rotated. I'm not sure if there's anything you can do there, but something solid is might be more preferred. Is there a plan for and I believe, Mr. Skirdo, is there a requirement for a 6-foot-high wall around the perimeter as well?
I believe there is, but this is a plan unit development, so the planning commission has some latitude on looking at screening as well as the wall.
Okay. Okay, so depending on what you end up with as far as layout, that might be a requirement. That's all I had right now.
All right, thank you, Mr. Bentley. Anyone else?
Mr. Chairman, I did have a few if I could.
Sure. Go ahead, Mr.
Thanks for the presentation, I appreciate it. We always struggle a little bit with these conceptual ones because it's hard not to dive straight into the meat and potatoes of the drawing, so I'll endeavor to do that tonight. First thing I'd mention is this is master planned residential. It is residential, surrounded by residential, and everybody looks at this a little bit different, but conceptually, I'm very cognizant of that. So if this was in a vacuum, if it was out in the middle of nowhere, I'd probably look at it differently than when it's in the middle of residential where residential was planned. One of the things that I've always felt concerned about is when residents come in and something's being built behind them. We had this several weeks ago. We say, hey, when you bought the house, you need to look at the zoning behind you. And if you don't like what it's being built there, you had the opportunity to see that when you built the house. So conversely, when we have something come in that radically changes what someone could expect, it kind of goes against that thing we tell everybody. So for you, when I look at this, it's very much that colors what I see in that the people who bought there, if they had looked, if they'd done their due diligence, they would have seen residential. This is obviously significantly different than residential. So just a general conceptual thing that as we go forward, similar to the light concerns, similar to the screening concerns, all those things, I'm comparing it to what it would be residential to an extent. I think we have the ability to do that, and within reason, I think it's reasonable for the community to do that. That being said, couple of observations. I like that you had no lights on the field outdoors. You had indicated it might go either way, but it's an expense. conceptually, I like that it doesn't have light outside. I think that is, that's a benefit. Similar to Mr. Bentley's comments, I would have concerns about bleed over light from inside of the facility. So if you can keep an eye on it, I think that would be good. You mentioned sidewalks. The plan does not show sidewalks to the main road. Sounds like you're planning on them. I would just encourage you that I would think that would be a benefit to the facility and a benefit to the township. I was curious if you have control over the property at the moment, or if this is subjective.
No, we have control of the property, yep.
Okay, and a follow-up question to that, and I'll ask it now. Sometimes I call the planning department. Typically, I walk these parcels. I haven't walked this one yet, and I would just ask for permission before we were to see it again. It's obviously a dense parcel. I might not be able to get much into it, but do I have permission to walk it if it comes before the planning commission again? Is that something that
Sure,
you can
we can schedule that, sure.
I typically don't walk it with the petitioner. Obviously, there's some potential conflict of interest. So if you don't want me on the property, that's fine. But I have a pair of hiking boots and a long shirt, and I usually take my chances with the nettles
Yeah,
a little bit.
we can schedule it. There's a resident who's on the property now, so we just like to be polite. and check
I'll
in.
talk to the planning department before we see it next time, and I'm sure they can get in touch with you. The last thing is a general piece. Because of thinking about it with the residential, we're not seeing the whole plan here tonight. Everybody looks at the PUDs a little bit different. They're there to help benefit the township. They're there to give the developer flexibility to some extent in equal measure, or at least complementary measure. What I see here is pretty good. There's some things that I would discuss on more of a site plan issue. What concerns me is that we're not seeing the whole project without the residential piece. You mentioned single family, you mentioned multifamily. It's a big difference with the density on the parcel. If you told me this is what was going to go there long term, I'd be really happy with the green space. I would feel like beyond just the park, there'd be a benefit. If you told me that next week we're going to have a local developer come in and the north half of the parcel is going to be 100% full of, medium density, mid-rise buildings, suddenly the south end doesn't look nearly so balanced anymore. So I would say, just for myself, conceptually, I like what I see, but I have concerns of what I don't see. I'm not saying that I wouldn't vote to approve something if the north half was significantly different, but I could see how it could be a significantly different feeling depending on what we saw there. So again, it's conceptual, just trying to give you my thoughts and understand what's going. All in all, we've looked at a facility not like this, but a similar concept before on 23. It did not end up getting built. We heard a lot about it. I've heard a lot about it since then. As you know, there is a demand for this within the township. So I think there's a demand. I can tell you've done a lot of work, which I appreciate on the screening. I hope you continue that thought process as you go through. And all in all, I think it's a solid plan. Hopefully we see more of it. So that's all I have. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right.
I got a
Mr.
question
Duffield. Anyone else?
to the petitioner.
Yeah.
Has Macomb County Road Commission seen this?
So we'll have our traffic engineers work with the road commission.
That one, my question. Have they seen it or not?
We haven't shown them anything yet.
Okay.
No.
All right.
And once we get to schematics, we'll start engaging them.
Anyone else? All right. I was told that because this is a concept plan, we don't have to open it to the public, but I would like to open it to the public anyways. So I need a motion to open this item to the public.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Bentley
Support.
and supported by Mr. Oliver. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay. And just as a reminder, come up to the podium. You have 4 minutes to express your concerns and comments. Because it is a concept plan, Mr. Skirdo will take all those comments and, Mr. Smith here has got a long road ahead of him. It's not like he's just going to be, getting a hammer and nail out tomorrow, because that's just not going to happen. There's a lot of, hoops to go through. Correct, Mr. Skirdo?
It's a process.
Process, yeah. And so we'll take your comments and we'll take your concerns and we'll take them to heart, and Mr. Skirdo will use those when he's working with Mr. Smith. So is there anyone here that would like to speak? Come on up. And again, state your name and address, and you got 4 minutes.
Good afternoon, my name is Ronald Parrish. I live at 48730 Rattle Run Drive in Sycamore Estates. I see this being an asset to Macomb County as opposed to an eyesore. The parcel that I've seen, and I've been here almost 10 years, has been up for sale and nothing's been done with it. And this would be a better asset. He's got ideas and plans for senior citizens, for moms. I have 3 children that went to Dakota High School as well, that all played sports, and most of my money went to Oakland Township in Oakland County, where we don't have a sports facility like this to have our kids stay and play. And I think this is something that, besides being an asset, that this is one thing that is missing in Macomb Township.
Okay, thank you, sir. Anyone else?
Hello, I'm Jack Johns. I live at 35 Riverside Drive in Mount Clemens, Michigan, but I work for Macomb County directly at 1 South Main in Mount Clemens. I'm the project manager for Macomb County Planning and Economic Development. So I'm one of the economic developers for that department, and I work with all 27 municipalities in Macomb County. And I'm working with projects to help them be successful in Macomb County, such as this. We encourage them to work closely with the townships to resolve any situations between the township and also with the residents. And it could be anything from the sight lines, sound, water mitigation issues, lighting, and all those things, came up, obviously. So we're working with them to make sure those situations are resolved on your benefit and also with the residents. Then I am also the connection with DT Energy, consumers, a number of different agencies, partnering with them for the workforce pieces when they need even new hires. And projects like this, he has his money actually involved with this project. It's not like he's just using investors' money to do this, so he's serious because his money is in the game. Also, it's a great project to bring revenue to the township, jobs, and also really fun activities to the citizens. So in closing, Macomb County is really excited about this project. We've been working with Mark for over about 1.5 years, 2 years now, and we're hoping it does come to Macomb Township, and we'd be happy to have him call Macomb County his business home. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else?
Hi, my name is Greg Jones. I live on 16688 Country Club Drive, just about 5 minutes from here. My background, I am from Cincinnati, Ohio. I just moved here recently with my family. I have 3 kids, 7, 6, and 2. But I played football at Moeller High School. Came here with All-State, went to Michigan State University, was a 3-time All-American, 3-time All-Big Ten. Got drafted in the 6th round to the New York Giants, where I was very fortunate enough to win a Super Bowl at. And recently I've been working a lot with the kids here in football, and really all sports as well too. And I cannot tell you guys and everybody here how much this is needed. I can tell you a lot, like he said, Oakland County, we travel the kids over for tournaments and leagues and things like that. I think it would be amazing just to bring that here. A lot of my clients, a lot of kids that I work with, really want something like this here from all the people that I've talked to. So I just think it'd be so beneficial for us to have it here, and I would try to lead that program up here at Smith Arena. So thank you guys for your time. Appreciate it.
Excuse me.
Please.
On your hand, is that?
Yeah, so I just got back from New York. It was the 10th anniversary for the Super Bowl. I had my ring on me, so it was not, Mark, I promise I didn't. But it was just one of those things that it just happened to come up, though. But yeah, you can definitely try it on and take a picture if you would like to. Thank you guys, I appreciate it, man.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? My folks right here. All I can think of is a Western called The Magnificent Seven. And do you guys have anything you'd like to share tonight? Anybody? No one? Okay.
Mr. Hardy? Mr. Hardy?
Yes, sir.
Usually I don't ask any questions but this is just for the applicant to determine if the project has any merit. And as you know, I'll be dealing with this applicant quite a bit.
Okay.
I just had a couple questions for him, if you don't mind.
Sure.
What I wasn't clear is on the outdoor field, is there going to be stands? Because I don't see that on your depiction.
We'll use tip and rolls. So those will be, if we have, let's say we have 50 parents that want to come out,
Sure.
we'll make room for them. Typically not. We'll use it for training.
So there won't be any permanent stands out there?
No.
Okay. And what typically is the occupancy for those stands?
It's what you might see at an AYSO game or a soccer game. You might see half the parents there.
I'm thinking more with football, because football seems to draw, depending on the level, what you expect out there.
Yeah, we're not going to have Michigan State there.
Or
But-
or local high schools, that's not the intent.
No, they'll play at their own facility. We'll be there in case something happens to a high school, but then they'd be really reduced in terms of how many people can come. It might just be family and coaches.
So this is just, and again, this is just daytime use, it's not any lighting
Yeah, we don't
expected?
we don't have any plans for after sunset.
Okay. And then just a question, so you have the sand volleyball courts next to the residential, is that the plan?
No, we've got it about 90 feet from residential.
Okay, but that's on the residential side, right?
One of them, yeah.
And that's just seasonal. Are there outdoor sand volleyball leagues? Is that what that is?
There could be.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, for us, it really comes from a desire we used to with our family. We'd play as a family and, more charitable, but community-based.
Okay. And then was there any consideration to indoor tennis or pickleball at all? I know that's pickleball is the most popular sport, I think, in the country right now, and I didn't see anything in that in your concept.
Yeah.
Because you talked about seniors.
Phenomenal you picked that up. Yeah. Pickleball, I think out of the calls we get each week, 90% are about pickleball. So yes, pickleball will be there. Okay. So we've got 4 basketball courts that can be taped off for about 8 to 10 pickleball courts.
Okay.
That'll be a lot of the mornings.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay.
Just
Thank you.
follow up on.
You know what? Can we close the public portion first? Okay.
So moved.
It is, okay, and a motion has been made by Mr. Oliver,
Second.
seconded by Mr. Spatafora. All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion passes. Go ahead, Mr. Oliver.
Just on a follow up on a pickleball / basketball. So you'll have hoops, and then you'll be able to convert them immediately or use the same court?
Yeah, all of ours are suspended, so they move out of the way. So we do that with volleyball as well. So it allows you to set up quickly and always have the right height. And then it's removed for pickleball,
Because I'm learning a little bit about pickleball as far as the floor.
Oh, yeah.
It's a very unique floor, and it wouldn't be a basketball floor. It'd be a pickleball floor. So your intention would be move everything out of the way, then now it's pickleball, move it all back, now it's basketball. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yep, that's what we do. Yeah, ours, we would use our basketball courts, right? So when we play pickleball, we play on a lot of different surfaces, usually whatever's there, and we tape them off. So we'll have something along those lines.
Okay,
Yep, really excited.
thank you.
Mr. Oliver, that's how the rec center is set up. On the basketball courts, they have posts that go right into the floor, and it's lined up probably opposite. Instead of going full court, it goes half court, and they may be able to put 3 courts per half. And it's the same floor as they use for basketball or volleyball or anything like that. It's just lined off sideways.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? We have a motion.
I guess what I'm gonna ask Mr. Skidle, tonight, what's the direction? If the boards feels they're comfortable with this project, what is the direction? It does look like there's more discussion in-house that we need to get done. There's an empty field here. There's a road that we gotta decide what we're gonna do with, and that's a major road, just to say to do nothing with it, with the traffic today, it does seem like we need a little bit more in-house working. Do you got kind of a recommendation for us?
I mean, so right now, I did talk with the engineer. I talked with Josh earlier. Everybody on staff is fully supportive of this, 100%. But there are some questions we still would like to work with the applicant. We encourage is not to deny anything. We encourage just postponing it until we can get some of this stuff ironed out, especially when we talk about the residential component. Because here's what happens: if we approve the PD concept as shown right now, and we start down the road, and all of a sudden the residents start coming in, the PD concept has to be changed. So everybody's got to back up, start the whole process over again because it's in there. Mr. Smith and I talked earlier, and there is a possibility if he does not want to proceed with that north area, he could do I don't know where the property boundary is at, do a lot split off that portion and continue with a PD on where the arenas and the commercial is if they don't have a understanding what's happening on their residential area. And Mr. Tuckfield did allude to that. We just don't know what's going on in there, traffic concerns, things like that at this point.
I'm speaking for myself, but I'm listening to the board. It feels like everyone's, including the planners, are comfortable with this. But I just think there's a little bit more, I don't want to say steps, but discussion to work through some issues.
Mr. Oliver, if I may, at this phase, really no formal action is taken by the planning commission.
Okay.
Okay, so this is just a phase for the applicant to determine whether or not it's meritorious to really go forward. So we're not voting on any plan. We're not approving anything at this phase. It's just really that no formal action is taken.
Basically, thank you for bringing it in.
Yeah, I mean, it's like
great.
you may continue to move forward, and then as we know, we have the next phase, which is the design, the concept plan that has to be approved, and a lot more goes into that. We would have final site plan reviews. I mean, there's quite a bit to do. We have to put a PUD agreement together. Okay. So,
thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess, Mr. Lawyer, I don't know if this has really any legal effect. It happens so rare, but just to have maybe nice, clean, either closure or appreciation of what's been presented, could a motion just be made to receive and file what has been presented tonight, you know?
Yeah, I think basically it's just to close this phase of it, and he'll move on to the next phase, which is pursuant to ordinance.
And would you like to make that motion then?
If there's no further comments or objections, I would make a motion to receive, and file the comments, the presentation that has been made this evening, obviously for further study, development, as we proceed along the next steps in the plan unit development.
And I'll support that. All right, Mr. Bentley, please call the roll.
Yes, sir. Mr. Spatafor?
Yes.
Mr. Hardy?
Yes.
Mr. Bentley, yes. Mr. Tuckfield?
Yes.
Mr. Shudo?
Yes.
And Mr. Oliver?
Yes.
Okay, motion passes. All right, thank you, sir.
Thank you, gentlemen.
We'll give you a minute. You got your entourage and everything.
Have a nice night.
All right, Mr. Skirdo, is there any old business that we need to talk about
No
tonight?
old business.
Okay. Let's open it to the public. We don't have to do a motion or anything, but is there anyone in the, okay, there, the public is gone.
That's settled.
Commissioners' comments.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I passed out a couple flyers today to the board members, some programs that are offered through Macomb County. One program is the Handy Helpers. It's for seniors over 6 years old, and there's a lot of activities or things that seniors can get done for them at no charge. And I thought it was a great thing that should be brought up to our township, and maybe Charlie can bring it up at a meeting for him. And the other thing I brought up was, I talked a little bit about it last meeting, was the electric charging stations. And there's an article in the paper that Mark Hackle commented on it, and how Macomb County wants to get a foot up on the program. And I just thought it was just information that the Planning Commission would like to see. And maybe in the future, we'll see the charging stations in our township and in the area. And other than that, that's it.
Okay. And I did, well, my wife and I went looking for a vehicle, and at the dealership, there was just a little small box on the wall with the long extension cord that plugs into a car. It wasn't anything big or ostentatious or anything. I mean, it was very nice.
I've had 3 plug-ins. I had the charging station put in the house, and I loved it. And most of the cost was covered by grants and stuff like that through the government. So it's just something I think we need to look at, and if we pursue it, fine. If we don't, it's just point of reference.
Okay. Anyone else? Anyone else have, commissioners have a comment? All right, well, let's move on to the Macomb Township Board of Trustees Liaison, Mr. Charles Oliver.
Thank you, Mr. Hardy. Couple things. The board entered in, or is going to enter into a contract for new phones. They're all cloud-based. So we've kind of outlived our phones here in this facilities. So we're going to do that. We sold a couple pieces of property in the township, property that's been kind of sitting around in dormancy. And that worked out well. And I did ask the supervisor, Mr. Shudo, about the charging stations, and they're looking into that. So that's about it.
Good. All right, thank you. ZBA Liaison, Mr. Tuck. What?
Can we ask him questions?
Oh, I guess we could.
No, wait.
Yeah, let's
Wait
go
a
ahead and ask
second.
all sorts of
That wasn't
questions.
part of the deal.
I just wondered if you had any updates on some of the recommendations we made at the last meeting to the board, if what the status of those were.
On the zonings, the mass zonings, or
The mass
or the
zonings
master
and,
plan?
and, yeah, some of the plans.
Well, the board so far has approved everything that we brought to them from this board.
Okay.
So any of our mass zonings or zonings, our PUD, the MATIC, that's been all moved forward,
Okay.
all right? And the, so, yeah,
The only reason I ask is just to get feedback, if the board, it doesn't want to approve something that we're recommending, we would know in the future, kind of.
yeah, and I think the board will work hand in hand with us if there's an issue. But generally, we catch it before they catch it, so.
Right.
So, but seems like they're approving the stuff we bring them, so, and we're having great help from planning, legal. That helps any questions that the board has, so, seem to be harmoniously working together.
Well, thank you very much,
Yeah.
Mr. Oliver. Appreciate
You're
it.
much welcome.
That's it?
That's it.
All right, thank you, Mr. Bentley. Mr. Tuckfield, ZBA.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, 2 things this evening. The first item would be that at our last zoning board of appeals meeting, which I was not able to attend, similar to the planning commission meeting, the board discussed the possibility of adding ZBA alternates. We do have the ability to do this statutorily. They do not count for the purposes of quorum, but they do give the ability to have an extra vote. Particularly with the ZBA, with 5 members, we can get into a position very easily where there's 3 members and all 3 of them have to vote unanimously. Generally speaking, it's not really a good look because you can have a motion pass 2-1, but it fails because it doesn't have quorum. So we had talked about this several years ago. It wasn't a good time for it. Recently, it's been needed again. Mr. Box brought it up. I believe the ZBA encouraged it, and at the last board meeting, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Skirdo, I believe Mr. Viviano is asking for applications for appointments to the ZBA. I'm not entirely sure if we're looking for 1 or 2. I believe we have the ability to do 2.
Your ability to do 2.
But I think we may be looking for 1. So I'm not entirely sure how that's working out. But if anybody is interested, please feel free to contact the supervisor's office. There is application forms online, and the ZBA would be really happy to have some alternates who are interested in taking part in the township, trying to help their neighbors out and work with us. Yes, Mr. Bentley.
Question. I know that in the past, there have been applications to the ZBA.
Yeah.
That either were overlooked or somebody else was, appointed. Do you go back to those applications and see if they have, an interest?
I believe it's at the discretion of the supervisor. It's happened in the past with some people and it's not with others, so I would say that I don't think there's necessarily a tradition. I had plans to call the supervisor. I wanted to ask him about something, and I was going to mention to him that I know there are some out there.
Yes.
Whether or not he wants to read them, some of them are old. That's obviously his discretion, and I don't have a preference other than I know we have some that have come in the past. So one thing that is of note, I believe you cannot be a current employee of the township. Besides the ex officio member, which would be the clerk, who is technically an employee of the township. You have to be a registered voter, and it's generally good to have some concept of being able to look at drawings or look at plans. It's not required, but it's generally good general practice. So, and also the ability to view contentious issues. As much as we've seen contentious issues on the Planning Commission, the ZBA seems to have a higher percentage of upset meetings. So. Something to keep track of. So that's interesting, and pass it out to everybody. And the second thing would just be briefly. I was out for a week. I was sick with the beautiful disease that so many of us have gotten in the last year. I have recovered pretty well. I appreciate all the well wishes from people. A lot of people called me after I missed 2 meetings in a row. It's pretty unusual for me. Mr. Hardy's scooting away, and I just wanted to say that. I seem to be in good shape. I appreciate all the kind words, and besides being tired and slightly foggy, pretty much back to normal. So hopefully we'll be moving on, and I'll go another couple years before missing a meeting. So that was all I had this evening, and just thanks for all the kind words.
So the slightly foggy is normal? Is that what you said? You're back to normal, but slightly foggy?
Aaron, you put
Something
your
like
foot
that.
right into it on that.
Hey, I'll second that.
That was,
Okay, planning department items.
I think we got another big push on reviews coming in. We had 3 go out today, so you got some more activity coming. 2 variances, Aaron. The master plan, we got the go-ahead from everybody. We're putting our final touches on the maps and getting all the graphics in place. As soon as those are in place, we'll be mailing those out or emailing those out to everybody that needs to get them. Everybody, it gets them the date that we have stamped when we send them. They've got a 63-day period in which they respond. If everybody responds in 10 days, then we can proceed forward. Typically, the utilities never get back to you, or the railroad, or something like that. So typically, we end up waiting the 63 days. Now, on the good part, it doesn't mean the Planning Commission, we can't go back and start looking at some of the graphics and looking at some of the land uses and getting into the policies and the actions and making some adjustments on the way before we get the comments, because the comments that come back are totally advisory. You can take them or you don't have to take them. It's up to you. So as long as we don't make any wild changes, like we're going to zone the north half of the township all industrial or something, we can just proceed forward. So that's it. That's from our department.
Okay. Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Shudo,
Support.
supported by Mr. Tuckfield. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion passes. Thank you.